At 6 o'clock, I'd like to call this meeting of the Lancaster County Council to order tonight. Welcome everyone for being here and participating in our local government this evening. And with that, would you please rise and join Councilmember Alan Blackman as he leads us in our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and all the many blessings that you bestow upon us each and every day. Thank you for the opportunity that we have here to serve our citizens. And Lord, we thank you for this council. We thank you for the volunteers we have in this county, and we thank you for the employees that serve our citizens. Lord, we pray that we will be taking action tonight that will be pleasing in your sight, and will do that of your will. Please forgive us of our many sins. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, let's move on down to number 4, our approval of our agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion from Ms. McGriff, second from Mr. Blackman. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make an amended motion that we remove item from the agenda. I'd like to move that that item 8K, first reading and public hearing for ordinance 2021-1747, a rezoning at 2417 Linwood Drive be withdrawn as requested by the applicant. Furthermore, that item 13A1 be amended to add a second economic development discussion for Project Tropical. This item will be for discussion and information only, and no motion for this item will be forthcoming following the executive session.
All right, have a second on that.
Second.
Second from Ms. McGriff. Any discussion on that? All in favor of our amendment, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Now we're ready to vote on our agenda as amended. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. First up tonight, we have a special presentation from the Palmetto Pride to Keep Lancaster County Beautiful Committee. Mallory Coffey, Community Outreach Program Manager, Keep South Carolina Beautiful State Leader.
Good evening, council members and everyone here today. Again, I'm Mallory Coffey. Palmetto Pride's Keep South Carolina Beautiful State Leader, and it's so nice to see you all again. We've been working on this project for how many years now? Like 3, I think, total. And it all started with conversations with you all here today. It's been such a pleasure working with you all and seeing you all grow this committee and take initiative and say, yes, we want to eliminate litter in our county, and we want the cleanest, greenest, and most beautiful county in South Carolina. So we're here today, and if I would love to call the committee members who are present with us today to come on up, please. And as they're walking up, I just want to say the work that was done throughout this time period, you know, putting an affiliate together without COVID is difficult. Putting an affiliate together with COVID, whew, man, I can do anything now. And I think that these committee members can agree with you. They can literally do anything. They did not wait for their certification to start before they started moving forward with making things happen and doing projects, doing litter pickups, beautification projects, educating the citizens about recycling. And this county, this group, you all, these committee members, this is something to be proud of. I think what we're going to do first is present you guys with a small gift that you can have. Come on. I know you get to talk. Come on. Yeah, y'all can come on.
Tony here picks up trash out near Potter Road where she lives, out near the convenience site. And sometimes she turns it into art. And she wanted to present this to you guys, county council. So I think, Steve, if you don't mind, you might want to.
Well, Mr. Honeycutt was instrumental. He's the one that threw the trash over the, and really, chewed us out. So, I think he's probably more responsible than anyone up here for making, this happen.
Yes, you were, Councilman Honeycutt. We greatly appreciate it. And we would like to end our presentation this evening before we do a quick photo with you all, if you don't mind, by saying that in order to start an affiliate, not only in South Carolina but across this nation, it takes a financial investment in order for that organization, that affiliate, to grow. Not only did Lancaster County do something that very seldom happens, you hired someone to do this job and this job alone. That is an extraordinary achievement, and that speaks volumes to what you all feel and believe that this county needs for the economic development future for what you all will have. Finally, you all were recipients of a $10,000 grant to help make this official. And today we're here to present you with the second part of that grant. And you'll be able to use these funds for this affiliate to help it grow, help achieve its foundation. And because you guys were finished before the fiscal year, you'll also be able to apply for this upcoming fiscal year's annual support grant, which is also up to $10,000. So, Mandy, I will give this to you, but I think you have to give it to someone else.
I'm pretty sure I do.
But we would love to get a quick picture with you all holding the check, if you don't mind, and the sign, Councilman Honeycutt, before we end today.
Steve, hold a check.
Yeah, we've got money. Y'all come on down.
Y'all want all of us?
Whole kit to boot.
Move over here. Okay, here we go, 1, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, nobody move. Nobody move. Everybody smile. Mr. Graham, step in one. There you go. Now, ma'am, you need to step over that way. There we go. Y'all know how these folks are about their photos. And I'm gonna get one more just to be sure. All right.
All right, so again, we just wanted to say thank y'all for everything that you've done. We greatly appreciate it. Congratulations on this achievement.
All right, and again, we thank you and Mandy and everybody is Lancaster County is got serious about cleaning our roads up, and I think it's really making a difference as this council is committed to hire people to do that full time. Just hope they can find some people and we get started. All right, thank y'all again.
Thank you.
We now move down to citizens' comments. Please bear in mind, this is not a period of dialogue with council or a question and answer period. This is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. I ask that you address your remarks to council as a body and not to any individual council member. Please speak into the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to address council. Your time will not start until you have provided your name and address. First, we have William St. Louis.
My name is William St. Louis. I live at 1325 Cedar Pines Lake, Lancaster. Some of you may personally know me, and others might recognize my name as the strongly opinionated guest columnist in the Lancaster News. I want to address the bonuses to be given to essential county employees. The majority of these employees work in positions that are prone to be counted on during times of natural disasters, man-made disasters, or pandemic. I have no doubt that they have put in extra work time and faced an increased exposure and possibility of contracting COVID-19, but they did get paid for hours worked. Do they deserve a bonus? I must trust your judgment. However, there is another group of citizens that deserve the same consideration. They are the essential residents of this county who have suffered financially during the pandemic. They are facing eviction and becoming homeless. They temporarily lost their jobs. They had their work hours cut. They did not have the benefit of continuing to work or extend their hours with overtime. Most of us should be aware of the disparity of income and wealth in this country between the top 1% and the middle class, and the gap continues to grow. Another workers to be given bonuses are middle class, but the act of rewarding those workers without taking time to consider our neighbors who have suffered is a microcosm of the same problem. The county council is hoping to pay bonuses with some of the $19 million due to the county and federal COVID relief funds. It is proposed that $1.3 million to pay the bonuses would come from that $19 million. I'm asking the county council take into consideration to take another $1.3 million from the COVID relief funds and set it aside to help the needy citizens of this county. United Way, Austin Wilkes, and Hope are available to screen and distribute these funds to those that are most in need. I've always heard that Americans say that we are a Christian nation. Personally, I do not believe this. I'm not a Christian. I do not profess to be. However, I do remember the story of a man telling his more capable followers to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and shelter the homeless. This I do accept. Take the time to do what is right. Reward those that went the extra mile to ease the burden of a pandemic, but don't let those that suffered during the pandemic to continue to struggle when we have the means to make the difference. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. St. Louis. All right, I got 3 people listed here. I think it'll be 3 different people speaking. Mike, Byron, Margie, y'all the owners reps or what?
We're on the agenda, I think, for item 8.
All right, would you want to speak now or just be available for, you're welcome to speak now, and we'll call you back up when we get into discussion. But if you want to make comments,
Could I make comments when my agenda item comes up?
if we call you. But if you want to make comments beforehand,
Okay, yeah, I'll do it now.
all right.
Just trying
Okay.
to follow proper protocol.
All right.
Yeah. I'll try and do this in 3 minutes here. We good? Okay, my name is Mike Byron, and I'm a developer with Pedcore Investments. We're based out of suburban Indianapolis. The name of the project we're looking at here is Hawthorne Hills Apartment Homes. We're here on a request to rezone this property from GB General Business to MX Mixed Use. This is a rendering of the product we have planned, 3 stories, brick and hardy plank, no vinyl on that whatsoever. We are vertically integrated. We have our own in-house management, finance, accounting, design. We have long-term ownership of our properties. Let's see if I can get this to work. Yeah, there we go. All right, this is our other 4 deals that are in and around Charlotte right here. We have 4 other affordable workforce housing developments in and around Charlotte. You can see we have the one there on the very southern end, Hawthorne Hills Apartment Homes, what we're calling this. It's about 10 miles south of what our other up-and-running 198-unit deal is, Granite Point Apartment Homes. We have 216 units planned for this site. Our 2 other deals in South Carolina are Broad River Village and May River Village. Those are down by Hilton Head, down in southern South Carolina. This is the site here you can see on the left. It's an odd-shaped site. We have it planned for medical frontage, which is consistent with GB-zoned land on the frontage there, followed by apartments going westbound there. What we have planned and what we requested for our rezone corresponds to and is compatible and consistent with the neighborhood mixed-use future land use plan there. Furthermore, this is GB land. There's also 25 other properties within 3 miles that front Charlotte 521 that are zoned GB that are undeveloped for a total of 131 acres. So there is other GB zoned available land that fronts 521 that has yet to be developed. What we have planned here also is a good buffer in between the single family to the south there. By right now, a Costco could come in and develop on this site right here. We feel that a mixed-use development, which is what we're requesting on our rezone, would be a better fit for that buffer between the single family to the south. Also to the north of there is a 33-acre GB zoned parcel, and north of that parcel is a former recycling facility. We believe that we got a clean phase 1 on our property, but we believe that the property north of there may have some issues environmentally. We're here because there is an affordable housing crisis in Indian Land and in Lancaster County. Please pay attention that in the next 15 years, it's estimated that 60,000 people are going to be moving to Lancaster County. And right now, there is no real affordable housing, workforce housing apartments in this Indian Land corridor along 521 in this area, and that's why we're here. The rents for what we have planned, I think the most important stat here before I run out of time is our apartments will be $735 more affordable than what exists currently in this market right now. There is a huge need for this in the area. This is, again, for people that make no more than $49,140. My 3 minutes are up.
You go ahead for another minute or so.
Okay,
I'll let you.
Thank you
I'll
very
let
much. I'm trying to run through these. So who is this? So our site is also cat-a-corner across the street from Medical University of South Carolina, that planned 81-acre hospital. This comes directly from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. These are annual median incomes of people that would be working in those positions at the hospital: pharmacy techs, medical assistants, medical secretaries. as was discussed previously, frontline workers here. All these people would be living across the street. Would allow people to not have to drive in from so far away, where there is more affordable housing on the outskirts of town. This would actually be good for traffic. It's actually good if people spend more than 30% of their income on rent, then they have less money to spend on education, healthcare, various bills. But this is also the site challenges here. We have 100 foot of fall on this site. So it's 750 feet out on Charlotte 521, goes all the way down to 650 feet. It's an odd-shaped site. There are 2 creeks on here. Please note that the frontage, we do have planned on there for 45,000 square feet of medical office space on the frontage. And again, that frontage is consistent with GB General Business on the frontage there, which is the frontage along 521 would remain consistent with the GB use. But then we have 9 buildings for apartments planned back there. I want to stress this, we are ready, able, and willing to pay the school impact fee here. And it's about $8,300 last I saw. I don't know that has been codified yet, but that's $1.79 million that when we close on this land, we will pay our way on the school impact fee. We also plan to improve the sewer here. If you can see down there, the green, there's an existing sewer that goes all the way down to that green pump station. We would replace that pump station down there with 12-inch main at a cost of $150,000. And then we would extend from that main all the way along Possum Hollow, all the way out to Charlotte 521. 18-inch force main that we would improve from the 12-inch main. We will pay for that with our own without any cost to any taxpayers. That is going to be a huge benefit for all the other people in that area to have that sewer.
All right, we'll call you back up if we need additional information.
Yeah.
All right,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
your time. Thank you very much.
Brian Broughton.
Good evening, Council. My name is Brian Broughton. I guess I'll use 6526 Flat Rock Road. I'm in the process of moving, but anyway, here in East Springs. What I'm here to talk to you about, I'm President and CEO of Lynch's River Electric Cooperative, which has now started a subsidiary, which is RiverNet Connect. The reason we started that is to provide fiber in our territory, which is southern Lancaster County, out in the Beaufort area, Kershaw area, and then we go into the western area of southern Lancaster County. We feel like, we started this project in 2019, we announced it. Then guess what happened? COVID happened, but right now, in Lancaster County, we've spent about $2.5 million to serve some of our residents now, and we're looking at spending $8 to $10 million more dollars in Lancaster County. We look at this as something that's not, it's a definite need. It's necessary for each citizen of Lancaster County to have access to a fiber. Our fiber is affordable. We're only doing, well, we got 3. We got 2, a 300 by 300, which is $59.95, and we're doing a gig over a gig, which is $79.95. I don't think you can find anywhere where you will beat those prices. Also, fiber just helps my kids. My kids had to do schoolwork from home. We couldn't do that. I had Zoom meetings. I run a company. I couldn't do it from home, which, had to go to my office. Phones wouldn't work, anything like that. I'll tell you what fiber does. Fiber saves money. Fiber to the home saves money. Just in my case, for example, we were spending $150, $160 a month with TV. We couldn't stream, so we had to do Dish Network. That bill now was $65 a month. My cell phone wouldn't work. Well, now with Wi-Fi calling, my cell phone works. I don't need a home phone no more. I can use my cell phone anywhere in my house. There's just so many needs of what it does for the community as far as cutting prices. We do businesses. We do it all. You can keep your phone if you want to. You can connect with RiverNet Connect and keep your phone and keep your phone number if you want to. We have all that worked out. But what I wanted to do tonight is to come up and speak to you for a few minutes and just start a dialogue. And what I would love to do is come back at some point in time and be on the agenda. We would love to get some funding if there's any available through the ARPA or anything. But I have a lot of resources, a lot of maps that I can show you in southern Lancaster County where there's a lot of people, 0% areas in Lancaster County they have absolutely no access to fiber or high-speed internet. I mean, people are going off 2 megabits of speed, and that's what I had, 2. And I was told that's all I'm going to have. Well, guess what? Right now I have a gig, and I can do anything that anybody else can do anywhere in this great country we live in. So our kids deserve it, our families deserve it, and I just want to start that dialogue tonight, and hopefully I can come back and we can have more conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Maggie Adams.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Adams. I live at 1749 West Canning Drive in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. I'm Lavinia Lynch's daughter and her trustee, and I'm speaking in favor of PEDCOR Development's rezoning applications. My mother lived in Indian Land Township all her life. She loved her community and remained actively engaged with her church and the community until she passed away in 2014. In the late 1970s, progress arrived and half of her front yard was purchased and used to construct the southbound lanes of Highway 521. And as she aged, the zoning changed and developers called. She often told me, if I'm not able to sell my land, I want you to choose something that will benefit the community and be something our family can be proud of. Last summer, several letters of interest arrived about the same time, all for multifamily. I chose PEDCOR because they wanted to build a safe, affordable workforce housing complex. Our state government recognizes the need for workforce housing. In May 2020, the South Carolina legislature passed the Workforce Senior Housing Act, and Representative Brandon Newton voted in favor of it. The governor has signed it, and I recently heard him speak about the need to continue finding workforce housing in South Carolina. As my mother wished, workforce housing will benefit those whose jobs are vital to the Lancaster County's economic success and safety. The county currently has job openings and salary schedules posted for a correctional officer, EMTs, a patrol officer, and a dispatcher, as well as several public works positions. All would qualify to live at Hawthorne Hills. 1 or 2 medical office buildings on 521 will fulfill the planning department's desire to have facilities available to complement the future hospital. Some who work in the buildings could also live at Hawthorne Hills and walk to work, and many MUSC staff could also live there. My mother's trust charged me to sell the property, distribute the proceeds to her heirs in a reasonable amount of time. Since 2016, my broker and I have met with the staff of the previous and current planning departments to discuss the best and highest use for the property. In every conversation, we agreed that putting commercial on 521 and multifamily housing in the back would fit the comprehensive plan, and it could be rezoned from GB to MX. Based on those conversations, I never imagined planning would recommend tying my property up for several years in the hopes of combining it with one that is not for sale. I hope you read the letter I sent to Mr. Burns detailing those past attempts and some reasons why combining them will be next to impossible. And I appreciate your time tonight, and for those and many other reasons, I urge the council to approve PEDCOR's rezoning applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Kathy Garner.
Kathy Garner, 8336 Lake Providence Drive, Matthews, North Carolina. Ann Seacrest McCullough is chair of the National Housing Conference Board of Governors and president and CEO of the Housing Partnership Equity Trust. Recently, there was a post she put up on the nhc.org website, which I'll quote and paraphrase, which focuses on the human side of workforce housing. She begins, "You and I know the litany, the number of Americans who live paycheck to paycheck, the shortage of housing, particularly affordable housing, the stagnation and decline in incomes, the cost of construction materials and regulatory barriers, the shortage of skilled labor in the construction trades, and housing's effect on the health and prospects of families and children. Ms. McCullough is trained as a lawyer coming from generations of Southern lawyers, teachers, ministers, and politicians. What people like her do is tell stories in hopes of helping us better understand the complex world we live in. To do this, she spoke beyond the abstract numbers to try to touch the everyday, the human level of affordable housing. She asked her readers to think about the people in our own lives that we rely on, the people so many of us suddenly missed once the pandemic took hold. The grocery, restaurant, and hospitality workers, the staff at the county parks, at the rec department's senior exercise program where maybe some of us were working out, the trainers at the neighborhood gym, the guys at the local hardware store who could help you figure out anything and help you fix it. And then later she asked, who have you been particularly grateful for during the pandemic? The obvious answer, she states, the nurses, lab technicians, and orderlies who kept the hospitals and doctors' offices and health clinics going, the delivery drivers who delivered essential items so you and I could stay at home and be safe, the teachers who figured out how to juggle in-person and remote learning on an on-again, off-again schedule, the folks at your favorite restaurant who figured out new logistics of interrupted supply chains, varying staff needs, and outdoor pickup windows. And in the case of any major emergency or natural disaster, who will you need first? Emergency workers, public safety officers, transportation workers, construction workers, and sanitation workers. These are the folks who are affected by the housing crisis, who worry that they won't be able to remain in the communities they love and serve because they simply can't afford it anymore. These are the folks who are forced to double and triple up in apartments because there aren't affordable options in our areas. These are the folks that our community serves because we know that if we're going to have a community that provides vital things for all the things we want and need, we need housing that meets their needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garner. Our last speaker is signed up, Michelle Brown. Okay.
Michelle Brown. The address is 11308 Kingfisher Drive. Really, just to keep everything brief, we just have one quick question. Which I wrote it down on the sign-in sheet about the future plans for 2030. Because that's what we wanted to know. Did it involve any of our properties? I do have the parcel numbers that we're concerned about.
Are you familiar what she's talking about?
I'm afraid I don't, but if you want to leave me your information, I'd be happy to follow up with you about.
Well, what I did was just wrote down briefly on the sign-in sheet.
Okay.
Is our concern about the future plans for 2030.
Okay.
That should already
Ma'am, speak into the mic, please, so we can hear you.
Sorry.
Give Mr. Burhands, Rox is overall the development service and planning, zoning, and him or somebody from his staff will contact you, or you can call them, and we'll discuss in what the information you're looking for, because we don't have, I've got no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we will.
All right.
We
If
really
you don't
didn't know who to contact.
if you can go over there and give Brock, sure. You can write it down. You need something? He's got it.
If you could write down. You could just write down your information.
All right, while she's giving her information, Mr. Willis has 3 additional comments from citizens that were emailed in.
The first one is from a Michael Jacobs of Sun City in Indian Land. Absolute yes vote is the only intelligent vote on impact fees for new homes. And I would note you should have copies of all these at your desk. The second one is from Tom, and I'm probably going to butcher this last name, Scarilli, of 2036 Somerset Terrace, which is in Sun City, Carolina Lakes. Given the growth of our county, especially the Panhandle, we do need to approach the deal with growth, and one of those ways is using impact fees. I fully support the proposal to introduce the use of these fees for new houses to be built after October 1, 2021. Appears to me we're behind other counties and other communities in putting forth this type of legislation, which provide funding for critical services without impacting existing homeowners. The final one is from a Mr. Michael Mellenbach. Do not have an address on this. He is opposed to the workforce housing on 521. He is okay with the rooftop fee. I'm presuming he's talking about the impact fee. My tax assessment report shows I'm paying $700+ in taxes to service school bonds to provide education to transplants from the northern states. Sure, we have people moving in from other places, but that was his comment. Those were the 3 that came in electronically.
All right. We'll give her another minute. We'll move on down to our consent agenda. Item number 7, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion under consent agenda to approve 7A, 7B, 7C, 7D, 7E, 7F, and 7G.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Honeycutt, a second from Ms. McGriff. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. We'll now move down to our non-consent agenda. We'll start with item 8A. We have a public hearing and resolution 1160-R 2021 regarding approval of a conditional use permit for a minor maintenance and repair. The applicant is Pavilion Development Company. Mr. Burhans?
We might need a second.
Yeah, we'll give it.
Mr. Chairman, could we legally do consent agenda without Billy Posteller making the motion?
We did. Yeah, we'll.
Thank you so much. It's nice meeting you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The item before you is a conditional use permit request to support a minor auto maintenance and repair establishment. Specifically, it's going to facilitate construction of a Jiffy Lube franchise that's going to perform conventional vehicle maintenance and repair services, brakes, batteries, tires, and things of that sort. This is distinguished from major vehicle repair, which contemplates auto body, which is not a part of this proposal. The subject property is located near the intersection of 521 and Shelley Mullis Road in a new commercial center you may have seen with the Sam's Express Mart and a future McDonald's planned. Okay, just to get everyone further oriented into the location. Again, key intersection, Shelley Mullis and 521. The yellow square is the subject property location. It fronts directly onto Shelley Mullis and backs up, or actually to its rear is the car wash and gas station that you may have seen recently built. Just to give you a representation of the concept plan, which is on this slide here. Again, the project is going to front directly onto Shelley Mullis. It will not have any direct access to Shelley Mullis. It'll tie into the overall center's driveways on site, and then The vehicles will enter through the rear and exit out the front. And again, just minor vehicle repair services happening at the establishment. Planning Commission considered this item at their June meeting, whereby they did recommend conditional approval of the project, the conditions just being that they fulfill the technical review comments that staff has provided as part of their civil construction plans. The applicants reviewed these, has no issue with complying, with the comments that have been provided, and staff also is recommended conditional approval of this item. I believe the applicant is here if you have any specific questions, and I'll certainly take any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chair, I have one. You did say that the concerns that you had will be revisited at the site plan, so that will be, the concerns will be dealt with.
That is correct.
Okay.
Have they been resolved, or are they just in discussion?
No, they're just, there are normal plan review items that, when an applicant submits their concept plan, we give them a review of the plan and identify specific items they'll need to address to meet the UDO compliance. It's not intended to be a set of construction drawings or something of that sort. What our point is that we've provided these comments to the applicant, and they understand them. They intend to comply with them, and that's why there's a condition on this recommendation. And honestly, most CUP permits have this condition on them.
Okay, and the next, this is for light repair Jiffy Lube,
Yes.
and it's a conditional use specific to that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And they can't change that use later on?
They cannot upgrade it to, let's say, a major auto repair without going back through the process for that use.
Okay, that was really my question.
All right, any more questions for Mr. Burhans? We do have a public hearing on this. No one signed up, but Mr. Willis has.
Nobody signed up for the public hearing.
But you have one that came in?
Well, I have another citizen comment that came in late, just when we finish this item, if I could just
Oh,
mention that.
okay, yeah. Okay, since no one signed up for a public hearing, we'll move past our public hearing, and I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. McGriff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Carnes. Discussion. Any questions?
No, I'm okay with it as long as all the conditions are met.
All right. All right, hearing no more questions or discussion, we're ready to vote. All in favor, raising your right hand. We have unanimous approval, 6-0 tonight. Let's move down to third reading of ordinance 2021-1726 regarding adoption of the capital improvement plan. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
From Ms. McGriff. Second from Mr. Carnes. Ms. Belk?
Mr. Chair, members of council, at the last meeting, we did table this item or defer it to this meeting so council could make a vote on the adjusted impact fee study area for the public safety. That was approved by council for each one, 5-2. This, I am presenting tonight an amended version, and I would need a motion from council that takes that amended study area into effect, as that did impact the projections on the revenue. I have included in the agenda packet a summary of the changes that we're recommending in that amended CIP version as a result of that revenue. I'll just kind of hit those really quick. The sheriff's substation, which is planned, but it's in the out years of the capital improvement plan, so not in the next 5 years, but in the next 10 years. There was a difference of roughly $173,000. That's now proposed in the plan to be covered from general fund funding, as that project already was going to have some general fund contribution. The impact fee was not going to cover the total cost. The ambulances, we had it planned that 3 ambulances were going to be funded via the impact fee, three. That the third ambulance was going to be funded, we already fund 2 each year from our capital fund, but a third one was going to be added each year from the impact fee. That's now going to drop to roughly every other year with the projected impact fee revenues. The fire vehicles, again, those were impacted roughly 2.7 million by changing the study area. It shouldn't impact much in the next 5 years. We'll do another CIP for the out 5 years, so the 10-year plan. Council would have to come back on that one. Right now, what we've said is we'll use another funding source that we have yet to identify at this time. And similarly, the fire stations, we had 3 planned. There's still 1 that will be able to move forward in the 5-year plan, but in the 10-year plan, we'll have to look at another funding source to make up the difference and be able to accomplish all 3 of those.
All right.
That's it.
Any questions for Ms. Belk?
Chairman, I make a motion that we approve or substitute the capital improvement plan that is amended as part of the attachments for this ordinance.
Second.
All right, we have an amendment for Mr. Carnes, a second for Mr. Blackman. Any discussion on that amendment? You're good with the wording? We're ready to vote on the amendment. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval on our amendment. Any more discussion before we vote on this? We're ready to vote on third reading of ordinance 2021-1726 as amended. All in favor, raise your right hand. So we have unanimous approval, third reading of ordinance 2021-1726. Let's move down to 8C. We have third reading of ordinance 2021-1725 regarding adopting a Parks and Recreation Development Impact Fee. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Honeycutt. Who got the second?
I got the second. I think he did the motion.
Mr. Honeycutt did. I heard Mr. Honey. It don't matter.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Ms. McGriff seconded. All right. Mr. Willis, Mr. DeBose.
I have nothing to add unless John has something.
Members of council, nothing has changed with this item from second reading other than the 2 minor edits noted in your agenda package. The development impact fee study prepared by the consultant Tischler Weiss was updated through June 23rd, 2021, and the CIP was updated through tonight as of a minute ago. So there is a proposed amended ordinance as third reading version in your package. It simply references that capital improvement plan is now dated July 19, 2021, and again makes reference to the updated development impact fee study, whose only change was to reference the updated development milestone associated with the effective date. I'm happy to answer any questions any member of council has, but again, those are the finite changes. If those meet with council's approval, we would be looking for a motion to amend and substitute the third reading version of the ordinance as contained in the agenda package.
Chairman, I make a motion that we amend the motion and to substitute the third reading version that is contained in our agenda package.
Second.
Second from Ms. McGriff. Charlene, you second that? Okay, I'm sorry, I can't hear. All right, any discussion on the amendment? We're ready to vote on our amendment to substitute the new paperwork. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Any discussion on this before we vote?
This area for the Parks and Rec is bigger than the other ones, is that correct?
Correct. Parks and Rec
It
contains,
goes down to, goes south of 5, is that correct?
correct.
Okay.
Any more questions, discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote on third reading of ordinance 2021-1725 as amended. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. 8D, third reading of ordinance 2021-1722 regarding adopting a fire development impact fee. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Blackman, a second from Mr. Graham.
You better get,
Mr. Willis, Mr. DeBose.
you better speak up.
Members of council, similar to the Parks and Recreation fee, there are no changes since second reading, other than reference to the impact fee study dated June 23rd and a CIP dated July 19th. If those very granular edits and amendments meet with council's approval, we'd seek a motion to adopt the ordinance with the third reading version attached to the agenda. A motion to amend in the form of the third reading version attached to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to amend that we substitute the third reading version attached to our agenda for this ordinance.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carnes to amend, a second from Ms. McGriff. Any discussion on the amendment? Ready to vote, all in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Any discussion on third reading of the fire development impact fee?
No, I'm just glad we got to the third reading of the impact fee after talking about it for so long.
All right, well, I'm the only one in here that voted against it. Mr. Mosteller's not here tonight. And my only concern is not with the residential part, is I'm concerned what it would do to some of our commercial properties that we really have a lot of tax revenue that comes on, and that's my reason for not supporting this. Hearing no other comments, I think we're ready to vote. We're ready to vote on third reading of ordinance 2021-1722 as amended. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Third reading of ordinance 2021-1722 passes by a vote of 5-1. Let's move down to third reading of ordinance 2021-1723 regarding adopting an emergency medical services development impact fee. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion for Mr. Honeycutt,
Second.
second for Ms. McGriff. Mr. Willis or Mr. DeBose?
Members of council, again, just like the prior two impact fee setting ordinances, the only changes to the third reading ordinance are a reference to the June 23rd, 2021 Tischler Bice study and the capital improvement plan now dated July 19, 2021. If those changes meet with council's approval, we'd seek a motion amending the ordinance in the form of the third reading version attached to the agenda.
Chairman, I make a motion that we substitute the third reading version attached to our agenda for this ordinance.
I got a motion for Mr. Carnes to amend and have a second for Mr. Blackman. Any discussion on that amendment? Hearing none, any discussion on this impact fee? Hearing none, I think this council is ready to vote. We got to vote on our, did we vote on the amendment? No, we got to vote on it.
Vote on the amendment.
Okay, let's vote on the amendment. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Any more discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote on third reading of ordinance 2021-1723 as amended. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Third reading of ordinance 2021 passes by a vote of 5 for and 1 opposed. Move down to 8F, third reading of ordinance 2021-1724 regarding adopting a sheriff's development impact fee. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion for Ms. McGriff. I have a second.
Second.
Second for Mr. Graham.
Again,
Mr. DeBose.
members of council, again, there are no changes in the third reading proposed version of this ordinance from second reading other than updating the date of the CIP and updating the date of the titular bias study. If those changes meet with council's approval, we'd seek a motion amending the ordinance in the form of the third reading version attached to the agenda.
Chairman, I make a motion that we amend the third and add the third reading version that's attached to our agenda for this ordinance.
Have a motion to amend from Mr.
Second.
Carnes, second from Ms. McGriff. Any discussion on the amendment? We're ready to vote on our amendment. All in favor, raise your right hand. Any more discussion on our impact fees
Yes,
before we
Mr. Chairman.
wrap this up?
I just want to say that I was elected in 2012, and I have been pushing for impact fees since 2012, and we're finally passing them tonight. So I want to congratulate all the citizens of Lancaster County because it's going to benefit not only those in Indian land, but it's going to benefit every citizen of this county.
Any more comments? Like I said, it's been a long process, and
Well, that can, Brian, has stopped being kicked. I'm so happy.
all right. Hearing no more comments, we're ready to vote on third reading of ordinance 2021-1724 as amended. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, likewise. Third reading of ordinance 21-1724 passes by a vote of 5 for and 1 opposed. And those impact fees will go into effect.
October 1 is the plan, unless
Okay.
they have met the milestone, in which case they would not apply.
And you had one more public.
Yes, sir,
comment
it
to
applies
come.
to the next one. This one came in a little late. We'll make sure council gets a copy. This is from a Susan, again, I'm probably going to butcher the last name, Marotte, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, 2113 North Redtail Court, Indian Land, South Carolina, as opposed to the master development of the workforce housing apartments. Said we in Indian Land do not have city transport such as trains, buses, trolleys, many non-walkable areas. Schools are already at capacity. Feel this would be setting people up for a letdown. She is opposed.
All right, let's move down to 8G. We have a public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2021-1750 regarding rezoning property located at 9425 Charlotte Highway from GB to MX. The applicant is Pedcore Investments LLC. Mr. Burhans.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. As referenced, this is a proposed rezoning to an MX district, which the council has become familiar with in that it requires an associated MX master plan and development agreement with the rezoning. So I've organized a presentation for all three ordinances within a single presentation just to keep things complete and concise. So again, the first item is to rezone a single 33-acre parcel from GB to general business to the mixed-use district. And accompanying that will be a MX master plan for development of a multifamily apartment community and some designated commercial uses along the U.S. Highway 521 corridor. And again, there will be a development agreement with the project. And this property is located on Charlotte Highway, roughly 1,250 feet south of Highway 521 and Marvin Road intersection, and about 780 feet north of the future MUSC site that had been previously referenced. If you want to refamiliarize yourself with the MUSC site, it is on the opposite side of 521, south of this property that's zoned. You see the RB district label on the property. Unfortunately, my laser won't go on. It's right above my laser. If you can, sorry, it won't go on the screen. But you've heard that reference, I just want you to have an idea of where that specifically is. The area is generally characterized with surrounding zoning of general business and low-density residential zoning in that area. So just to give you a couple quick snapshots of the area, the left is looking directly at the subject property, the right photo is looking across the street. I think most of us are familiar with the 521 corridor and its current state. And so before you is a copy of the master plan that has been submitted. You have on the blue, along the frontage of 521, you have two buildings that are designated for commercial and more specifically office uses. And then to the west of that, you have approximately 9 multifamily buildings comprising 216 affordable or workforce housing apartments. You have a density of roughly 8 dwelling units an acre for the multifamily area. The area is going to be, the project would be served by its own interior road that would go through the project and then would kind of just basically turn into the adjacent property to the north, to potentially provide a tie-in for a future development. Okay, as part of the MX rezoning process, we do require community meetings, which the applicant held via Zoom in light of COVID concerns, and that was held in March of this year. There were 9 participants in the meeting, and the applicant gave an overview of the project as well as an overview of the tax credit program and how this project is unique to a conventional market rate project. Questions that came up during the meeting, just construction timing, when's it going to happen, how long is it going to be, entrances for the project on 521 and any traffic impacts, and then also where the sewer tie-in locations are going to be. Again, consistent with MX requirements, we do require a traffic study to be submitted. There's a lot of improvements or notes in that table. The ones to focus on are in bold, and that reflects, in essence, at the first entrance to the project, there is going to be a left and right turn lane into the project from 521. And then for the secondary access, that would be the southerly access, there's going to be a required right turn deceleration lane. The TIA is still in a draft form. It's being reviewed, continues to be reviewed by SCDOT and the county's traffic consultant, but these are the improvements that we have confirmed to date. So as part of the project with the development agreement, these typically include a legal description of uses, and kind of confirming those in a contractual arrangement. There historically have been rooftop fees, and as the applicant mentioned during citizen comments, they are committing to providing the county an equivalent to the county impact fee, which is roughly going to be $1,381 per unit. They have also committed to the proposed school fee, which is around $8,700 per unit, and they have indicated a willingness again to voluntarily subject themselves to those fees. And again, the traffic analysis improvements, when they are finalized, will be memorialized in the development agreement if it moves forward. Okay, so as part of the project of this magnitude and size, staff undertook a fairly detailed review of it, and we were kind of looking at 5 key factors in kind of evaluating the project. The first is the amount of multifamily development that we've had in the Indian Land area. Council's aware we've had quite a bit, and to put that into numbers, we've roughly have 1,858 apartments that have been built in Indian Land and occupied, and that most of those have come in the last 2.5 years. So that's a very quick timeline for that many units. We also have roughly 1,500 apartments that are undergoing either construction or some type of entitlement permitting through our process. And we also, while not defined in terms of numbers, we also have what we believe will be several hundred, could be in the high hundreds, of apartments that come with some older PD projects. And I'm thinking like Cross Ridge might be an example where you have apartments entitled that just we don't have a number yet, but we have fairly certain they will be building apartments at that. As has been discussed, we know there's going to be a future medical complex at MUSC across the street. It's going to be a big opportunity for the area, and it's going to be unique. We're very fortunate and grateful to have that investment in the community. And we also know that the number of large parcels available for development along 521 is getting reduced. Staff held a little small group session some months ago and kind of actually mapped out all the entitled properties on 521. And when you look at that, you know, the number is getting smaller and smaller. And so staff and council really needs to give close consideration to larger parcel development in 521, making sure it meets the council's goals for the community. And then also, MX District, as we know, is just for a reference point, has not really produced the mixed-use development type development that was envisioned when that district was created, and it was, I guess, kind of air quote, sold to council. That council was thinking that it was going to get a traditional mixed-use community or something that's more closely integrated. And then the last piece is that really for multifamily, whether it's affordable units or it's market rate units in Indian land, the county doesn't have a policy towards favoring one over the other. Apartments are apartments in Indian land. So, in kind of considering all those factors, staff believes that the general business zoning district, or potentially another district that will come out of the UDO update process, will likely produce a higher and best use for this site. Again, the site is located almost across the street from the medical campus, which again presents a unique opportunity. As was referenced by during citizen comments, there is an adjacent property to the north that's another 33 acres, completely separate ownership. Obviously, a complexity to combine and develop a larger project, but it does create an opportunity potentially. That could be a larger project of regional significance that could be developed. And also we note that this project really does not kind of change the trend we've seen with the MX District of creating a true mixed-use environment. It still perpetuates the multi-use concept of having residential on one section of the project and commercial on the other. And so for those reasons, we recommended disapproval of the application, and that's been consistent feedback that we've provided fairly early in the process. And so I just want to kind of go through kind of staff's, how staff landed on its recommendation, and so you can understand the factors that we considered. So now when Planning Commission considered it at its May meeting, it held a public hearing and ultimately recommended disapproval of the rezoning as well in a split vote. The issues that were discussed are land use compatibility and density, loss of commercially zoned land along 521, and ultimately just the layout of the project. Again, it has a long, narrow orientation, and they just felt like that wasn't the best configuration for a multifamily project. And so there were no public comments on the project. Consistent with the vote on the rezoning, the master plan also was recommended for disapproval in a split vote, as well as the development agreement. So I'll certainly make myself available for any questions you have. The applicant is here and can certainly elaborate further on the project.
So the master development plan there, the required finding of fact, could you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. The UDO has required findings of fact as part of the approval process for a master plan. And the findings are that the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It is an integration with the transportation system. It has minimal impact on infrastructure, or the infrastructure is suitable to support. It's compatible. It has compatibility with uses and structures. Its general site design is supportive. There's housing diversity and interconnectivity to surrounding developments. Those are the findings of fact criteria within the UDO.
And this meets those criteria?
No, they were found to not meet that criteria for the master plan.
Okay.
All right, any more questions for Mr. Burhans at this time?
I guess I'm just kind of confused as we talk about mixed use. We have, I think we have come to the conclusion that we want to modify that in our next UDO to be more of a requirement than a suggestion. And we've passed other developments that just had different residential components, meaning single family, duplex, townhome, whatever. Said that was mixed use, it met the criteria. And and this parcel here doesn't lend itself to some of those findings of fact, which I don't think we should be holding that against the parcel itself. I do like the idea of medical offices up front. If this were to be approved, they would have to put that in, right?
Well, right now, as written, it's just for commercial uses. It would be, whatever is allowed within the MX district. It would be up to the applicant if they wanted to further refine that in the development agreement to only one specific use. So
they haven't refined it to medical offices specifically?
they have verbally as a statement of intent, but it has not been in the development agreement. And I would add, I mean, and certainly, medical office is certainly a fine use. I would add, though, that in these types of entitlements, it would be a little unusual to restrict a commercial use to one single use and one single use only, just for the fact of what do you do if you can't occupy that space or all that space with that one single use. And so, the use can be locked, it can be restricted or narrowed down by virtue of the development agreement.
But I personally like the idea of commercial out by 521 and residential behind it. Would I like to see a different makeup of varying residential uses back there? Yes, but the site is limited. And I do think there's a need for this type of housing for people that work up there. As we continue going down the road to development, and we put higher and higher priced development in there, people in this income category are going to have to commute in, increasing the traffic problems that are already up there. I just see it being a worthwhile project.
Let me ask a question. They've agreed to the full impact fee that for the school board that doesn't exist yet. I know the recommendation out of Planning Commission was for like $6,000. Legally, what happens if this council approves a $6,000 or $5,000 school impact fee, and this project is agreed to a higher fee? Does it automatically come down?
People can agree, I mean, the
be-
development agreement's essentially a separate agreement, and if the developer wants to provide for that full freight proposed school fee, then that's really their prerogative as to whether they would want to provide it or not. If your question is whether there would be a credit structure against future enacted fees like it has been set up in prior development agreements, I mean, that is certainly a possibility as well. I will just state for the record, prior to us getting to the development agreement, that I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit, but the proposed development agreement in your agenda package, 2 items later, is the development agreement as presented by the developers. Has not been conformed to the county's form development agreement. Given the procedural posture of this and the negative recommendation of Planning Commission, I didn't want to undertake the several hours of work conforming it, not knowing what y'all's collective votes might be on the whole package tonight. But that said, those matters can be worked through with the applicant, and we can have an agreement for second reading as to what that would look like.
We're redoing the UDO, and one thing I would like to see, time is money, and the process that developers have to go through to get a rezoning on this, I know they got to spend money, but for a project like this, getting rezoned to MX, you know, they've already been required to do, they got the traffic impact fee study. I don't know how much has been committed, but I can imagine it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I would like to see something where we can give somebody an answer a little sooner in the process you know, you get what I'm talking about?
Mr. Chair.
That's my only concern is,
Mr. Chair, I do understand your concern for them putting all the time and effort in this project and being denied by the Planning Commission and the staff. But with both of them denying it, I don't see how I can vote in favor when we got the staff who's looked into it, the Planning Commission who have discussed it and, you know, voted against it, that I'm going to have to go along with the staff and the commission.
Yeah, the only comment I'm going to make.
right now, let's keep this to the questions for staff, because we do have a public hearing, and we'll get into the discussion. Any more questions for Mr. Burhans? All right, we do have a public hearing, and the applicant is here, but I think we will give him the right, when we start speaking, to have a conversation with council if they got questions. It's the fairest way, instead of making you get up here and public comment and not having any interaction. So we do have a public hearing, and no one.
Nobody signed up for the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
So we will move past our public hearing, and I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
So moved.
Have a motion from Ms. McGriff. Second. Have a second from Mr. Blackman. All right. Discussion.
Now, let me repeat what I said, since I said it at the wrong time. When we've got a planning staff and the commission denying it, I got a problem with that. Usually one may agree and the other one may not. Well, that's up for discussion. But when both of them denied, it's something here that we need to look at. And that's what we pay the staff for, is to do the research, come back to us and make a recommendation. We put together a commission to discuss it and bring recommendations to us. I know at times we do overturn some of those decisions, but this one, I think I got to go with staff and the commission.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that there is a market for this type of development in the inland area. However, in reading what the planning department sent us, and the impact that it's going to have on Lancaster County water and sewer, that troubles me, because I don't know just how far they will go. I'm talking about Lancaster County water and sewer on a project like this. That bothers me. I agree totally with the planning department on the comments that I read, but I am concerned about the impacts that it's going to have in that particular area.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Graham.
Mr. Burans gave some statistic on the number of apartments already being approved in the area north of Highway 5, and there are a lot of apartments. So I'm concerned about the number of apartments that are being approved and the stress that that's going to put on our schools and on our sheriff and on our other services. I'm also concerned about the land along 521 and the lack of large tracts of land for things that might have a better use or a better things. There's a dire shortage of business parks in the Panhandle, and there is a demand for them. So I'm concerned on those two things about this project.
I might need a legal opinion for Mr. DeBose, but is when you're considering a vote on this, part of your consideration should be just on that parcel? It shouldn't be based on, or does that matter? I would,
So, council's consideration of this matter basically is everything contained within the agenda package. But yeah, the overarching planning concerns and policy concerns of council as far as development, future development, what Lancaster is going to look like in a year or even 10 years are all relevant considerations. I mean, one of the primary requirements y'all are tasked with in any rezoning is just a base proposition about whether it complies with the comp plan. I mean, that's a fundamental consideration of council with any rezoning, and kind of a don't pass go, don't collect $200 proposition. After having considered whether something's compatible with the comp plan, though, council's consideration can extend to any manner of broader policy concerns. So I guess that answers your question?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Would the applicant like to come forward, because, if you want to make any statements, or if y'all got any questions or any comments that, I know you sit here and you've listened to council make comments.
Yeah, yes, I appreciate the conversation. I would like to address the impact fees. We do stand here ready, willing, and able to pay all impact fees and pay our way. That's what it costs. It's pay to play. That's what it costs to develop here in the county. Then we will do what we have to do, and we will make those fees. I understand the concern about the impact it will have on schools. Well, that will be the added. Last I saw, I know that impact fee for the school impact fee, last I saw was $8,300 a unit. And then I saw here tonight, I think $8,700 a unit. Whatever it is, we will pay that, and we will pay for the addition of kids from our development into the schools that will be provided for financially, and we will do that. We'll pay whatever impact fees are necessary for the project. I do want to address the property north that is discussed to be combined with our property. Number one, that's a property owned by Carol Bailey, but number one, that property is not for sale currently. Number two, when it was for sale in the past by Miss Bailey, she was asking far beyond market rate, or far beyond even reasonable price for that parcel of property. And the third thing to note on that piece of property is that it is adjacent to the former recycling facility north of there, and there's most likely some sort of environmental contamination on that property. Again, we did a phase one, expended more income to figure out, and we have a clean phase one environmental assessment on our property. The other thing is, there's been talk about apartments here. There are lots of apartments going up, and there are apartments in there, but there is absolutely nothing in this area that is affordable. When you're paying the average, I just want you guys to please think about this and note that the average one-bedroom unit for the 6 apartment projects within 2.5 miles of this site goes for $1,200, and I have it right here, $1,272 for a one-bedroom unit apartment. That is way beyond reasonable. Whereas our apartments would be $730 for a one-bedroom, and there's been nothing to address any of this affordability issue in this area. I drive around many areas all over the country. I've never seen anything as far outside of the market as this. When I've developed deals in Chicago and Denver, Des Moines, Charlotte, we have another deal now going down in Columbia, South Carolina as well. But if you're not going to address affordable housing now in a meaningful way, when? If not when, where? Because these people are coming. These people, like I said, the statistic I gave, 60,000 people in the next 15 years. They're coming. You're going to have to do something to think outside of the box to get something to address the affordability issue here.
All right,
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Well, would you mind addressing my concern about the business frontage there?
Yeah.
You're proposing medical office. Now, personally, and I agree with Mr. Burhans, that we've got to be careful that we don't contract something so much that if it doesn't work out, like if the medical community's not in demand there in that space, then we would be limiting ourselves if that's all that can be developed there. But being that it's so close to the hospital, I see that as being ripe for what you're planning. Have you done what studies or anything that truly justifies what you're proposing on the frontage?
Yes, excellent question. So I think we have 45,000 square feet of medical office space there. We have had conversations with MUSC staff, with her name is Jessica Paul. She's the chief real estate officer of MUSC. They're very interested in negotiating with us on those parcels to develop as medical office space. I also just took a cold call from somebody who is also in the medical office development. He called me just up and said, I'm interested in that for medical. I know that hospital's going in there, and that's what he wanted to do. I can't recall his name off the top of my head, but he did call. We also did, I'm very used to people being against affordable housing and workforce housing, because there's a lot of scare tactics that go out. This is not Section 8 housing. It's managed in a very well manner. No nonsense. We did have our neighborhood meeting. We pretty much had very good interaction with the neighbors. I'm not used to that, to be honest with you. We even had support from Brenda Little, one of the other neighbors there. We have support from MUSC. I know that the CEO, Scott Broom, I think contacted a couple members maybe of county council. We just think that this is the right place, the right time, and the right parcel for what we have planned for something that is very much needed.
I'm familiar somewhat with these type projects. Years ago, I was involved with some stuff my father and some other gentlemen did. And would you expand a little on maintenance? I know there are reserve accounts in these type projects, if I'm not correct, where there's a commitment to make sure that everything is kept up.
Yeah, very good question. So when we will apply for tax credits to South Carolina Housing, in our application, we have to commit to, we will use these products, which is, we are going to use hardy plank and brick. We're not going to put vinyl on it. They're going to be this square footage. We're going to have this many units. They're going to be set aside for people that make no more than 60% of the area median income. The area median income in the county is $73,300. What it comes down to ultimately is that it's for people that make no more than $49,160. People are very wary of developers a lot of times, because developers promise this, and then when they go to build it, they scale it back, and they scale it back. We cannot do that. What we put in our application and what we commit to with South Carolina Housing, if we don't live up to that, then South Carolina is going to say, you don't get your tax credits. And if you don't get your tax credits, the deal's done.
I know some 20-something years ago, these projects had reserve accounts where so much had to be in them and had to be spent on upkeep. So these, what is it, a 50-year commitment to the tax credits, or?
It's a 30-year commitment. And we do have to keep an operating reserve on hand.
Yeah, that's what I was talking
and a
about,
replacement reserve as well.
Reserve.
Yes, per the rules with South Carolina Housing, we have to have an operating reserve and a replacement reserve on per unit
That's what
basis.
I'm talking about. I just had the wrong terminology.
Yeah, that is something we have to commit to. And again, this is vetted by, so we apply for tax credit to South Carolina Housing, and we have to live up to many of their standards. And if we don't do it, we don't get the tax credits. We don't get the tax credits. That's the incentivization that keeps these deals affordable. Because I've been asked that before. How can you keep something with a rent that low? It's because we get the tax credits, which is the public-private partnership.
As you can see, the ones here in Lancaster, they are, most of them, they're kept up to date. A lot of them have been remodeled now in the last few years, even after most of them built in the 80s and 90s.
And that's the other thing to note, is most of them are here in the city of Lancaster.
Yeah, most of them, everything south.
Yeah, that's what kind of my research indicated that as well.
And some of the emails and stuff we've received, people have referenced HUD housing.
Yes.
Section 8 housing, I guess, is what they were saying. Can you expand on that a little bit more as it applies to this development?
So we are requesting HUD financing, which would be another vetting layer on this as well, but it will not be Section 8 housing. This deal is not tied in any way to Section 8 vouchers. We are not receiving any Section 8 housing money. set aside by HUD or committing to that. People that do have Section 8 housing vouchers are welcome to apply. However, a lot of times the rent is over what the voucher provides, but all those people that do apply, they have to go through all the income verification, the criminal background checks. They have to go through, that's why I brought with me Margie Williamson, who's over here, who's our division president for PEDCOR management. She's managed these apartment units all over for PEDCOR for 30-plus years. And she could expand on the management techniques and some of the challenges we've faced here and there, and also how this works with Section 8 housing as well. So if you'd like to address that, Margie? Surprise.
I don't know if you all want to hear all this, but we have a very vigorous application process for everyone that applies for our apartments. So not only do they have the criminal background check, credit reports, we have to look at their income, obviously, for the tax credit program. We have to make sure that they have a decent income to rent ratio, because if they can't afford the rent, they're not going to be successful. And we're in the business of renting apartments and keeping them safe, clean, keeping everyone in a good environment. And then we also look at their rental history, because that's what we do. We rent apartments. If they were buying a car, then I'd look how they'd pay, their car payment. But we do look at rental history. If they have negative rental history elsewhere, we probably would not approve them. Likewise, if they have a poor criminal background, we're probably not going to approve them, because if there's ever an offense that is against a person, a property, that is something that we take very seriously, because our residents are who we are there to take care of. So we've been doing this a long time, and affordable housing helps a lot of families, a lot of senior citizens. We just have a huge and broad spectrum of folks that we help out. So it is a fantastic opportunity to bring to Lancaster County, and I hope that you would consider us for it. We've been doing it a long time.
All right, thank you.
Margie, one quick question. So if you were managing this complex and you started filling it up, you get to a 90% occupancy rate or whatever, who would be in that 90%? What kind of people, what kind of occupations would they be?
You have my list? Because I took a sampling of all of the North Carolina properties that we currently have. And so I broke it down into 4 categories so that you have a perspective. Office staff, like the person that might be answering the phone as a receptionist or something of that nature, 24% is usually an average that we have seen in this area, 24% of those folks. Service industry, your baristas, your person that works at McDonald's, the person that is helping you in a retail center, the gas station attendant, that's like 30 to 40% of our groups. Those kinds of folks are not going to drive 10 miles to go to work. They want to drive 2 miles to go to work, 3 miles to go to work. So when you pull into the gas station, you can probably bet the person that's working behind that counter is probably within a short distance of time, short distance of space. Our medical is pretty high in Durham. It's 35%, but Raleigh and Charlotte are about 20 to 25%. So your CNAs, your aides, your people that are janitorial in the hospitals and in the facilities that we all enjoy is clean and safe, and they're those folks that we help. They're the ones that we have in our homes. And then the last would be like a technical manufacturing position. And who doesn't need manufacturing? We all do. We all need goods and services. So that's roughly, in the Charlotte area, 25%. So we have a pretty diverse group of folks. I didn't count the senior citizens and the Social Security disability folks. I wanted you to understand where we were with the industry areas. And depending on where we build can dictate a lot of that. So it's important for us to help service this community and help service everyone around us. So that's what we're doing.
All right, thank you. Any more questions?
Mr. Burhands, on the traffic analysis, you said there's still some stuff ongoing on that.
That's correct. So as part of the TIA review process, the TIA is reviewed not only by SCDOT, but also by the traffic consultant and it is, the comments, we have not received a resubmittal on that. I think the applicant wanted to get through first reading and then catch up on these items that need to be complete.
And my biggest concern is that this area is probably the most congested, if not one of the most congested areas in the county, or in the Indian Land area especially. You can see backups from Marvin Road a mile or more down the road. So I think that is a concern for how people are going to get in and out of the development.
One thing I would add, if council so chooses to pass first reading of tonight, there is you're aware that we have recently adopted the Collector Road study from RFATS. It does have an alignment. I wish this laser would work on the screens, but there is an alignment that kind of runs sort of where that creek is, and maybe just above it where some of the apartment buildings are. We're not really sure how or why they chose that alignment. We think a better alignment in this area would be further southward, probably across from where the traffic signal will be for the hospital. So if first reading were to be approved with second or if potential second or third reading, we would need the council to approve kind of a modification to that Collector Road study to take that into account. But we agree, we don't think a Collector Road running through this site is well suited. So I just want to make that bring that to your attention.
It would be nice if there was a back entrance out onto Possum Hollow Road, though, because then that gives you access to Highway 160 at a red light. And
yeah, that's absolutely the goal, is to get us back to Possum Hollow and somehow close to where Old Bales intersects. With this, I mean, you still have the Edgewater Parkway not too far to the north. And also, again, having a collector road run through an apartment community, also not really a great fit either, given how close the buildings are. So we completely agree with you, though, big picture.
All right. Any more discussion? Questions for staff? I think ready to vote. We're voting on first reading of ordinance 2021-1750 regarding rezoning property located at 9425 Charlotte Highway from GB to MX. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? The first reading of ordinance 2021-1750 fails by a vote of 2 for and 4 opposed. All right, now what would, on the next one, we got public hearing. How do we need to proceed?
We need to move forward with these, likely end up with the same result, but procedurally, we need to move forward with them. I would note, nobody signed up for the public hearing.
Public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2021-1751 regarding approval of a master development plan submission for Petticore Investments, LLC. A report from staff. Mr. Burhans has already been over that. No additional comments. There is a public hearing. No one signed up. We'll go through that, and we need, I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. McGriff. Have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Blackman. Discussion. Hearing none, we're ready to vote. All in favor of the development agreement, raise your right hand.
Master plan.
Huh?
Master plan.
Master plan, I'm sorry, the master plan. Raise your right hand. We have 2 for, opposed. We have 4 opposed. First reading of ordinance 2021-1751 fails by a vote of 2 for and 4 opposed. I, public hearing, and first reading of ordinance 2021-1752 regarding approval of a development agreement with Pegcor Investments LLC. Nothing else, Mr. Burns, he went over that. Public hearing, no one signed.
Nobody signed up, Mr. Chairman.
I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
So moved?
Vote for Ms. McGriff,
Second.
second for Mr. Blackman. I think we're ready to vote. All in favor of first reading of orders 2021-1752, raise your right hand. We have 2 for, opposed. Likewise, first reading of ordinance 2021-1752 fails by a vote of 2 for and 4 opposed. Let's move down to public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2021-1744 regarding property, rezoning property located at 10925 Pettis Farm Road from LDR to MDR. Mr. Burhans.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. This is a proposed rezoning request of a single 5.24 acre parcel from low-density residential district to the medium-density residential district. The subject property is located at 10925 Pettis Farm Road near the intersection of Barberville Road and Pettis Farm Road. The area is generally surrounded by low-density residential and medium-density residential zoning. The underlying intent of this request is to rezone it consistent with some neighboring larger parcels so that it can help support development of a new subdivision under the MDR district. At present, the request will be to was a conventional MDR subdivision, not a cluster project. So the 5-acre subject property is outlined there in yellow, and again, as you can see, it's surrounded by both LDR and MDR zoned properties, and so it would be ultimately combined with some of those neighboring MDR properties to help again form this subdivision. That's a completely separate application and process. Okay, again, just give you some location photos. The photo on the left is the house that resides on the 5-acre property, and the photo to the right is just looking, I guess that would be maybe to the southwest down the driveway. The recommendation from the Planning Commission at its June meeting was to unanimously recommend approval, finding it consistent with the neighborhood mixed-use land use classification. Staff also recommended approval, and we'll certainly make myself available for any questions. And I believe the applicant has a representative in the audience if you have any questions of him.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Burhans? All right, hearing none, we have a public hearing.
Nobody signed up for
No one
public hearing,
signed
Mr.
up.
Chairman.
We'll move past our public hearing. I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
Motion to approve.
Motion for Mr. Carnes. Second. Second for Mr. Honeycutt. Discussion.
Looks like most of this property is surrounded by MDR already.
Does anyone want to hear from the applicant? We all right? I think we're ready to vote for first reading. Ordinance 2021-1748. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Public hearing, unanimous approval on ordinance 2021-1748. Let's move down to public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2021-1745 regarding, did I miss something?
The next one, the one that was just approved was 1744.
Wait a minute,
The
I
next one,
missed one.
1747 was
I missed
withdrawn.
one, yeah, I did that one.
Yeah.
Okay, did I do that one? Is that what?
We're good on that. I think you just read out.
I read the wrong number.
48, yeah.
Yeah,
After
so
that,
it's, back it up, 1744. I'm sorry. I went right past that one. All right, public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2021-1748. Mr. Burhans.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is a proposed rezoning of a single 1.67 acre property from the institutional district to the low-density residential district Property is located at 585 Monroe Highway, adjacent to the Sown Light Community Church. It is surrounded by low-density residential and institutionally zoned properties. The underlying intent is the property is currently developed with a single-family home, which is a non-conforming use in the institutional district, and they'd ultimately like to rezone it to LDR to make it conforming to the zoning. And not sure exactly how it was zoned this way. We think maybe it was consensus next to the church. It was thought to be part of the rectory for the church, and so that's why they gave it institutional zoning when it was applied. Okay, so just to help orient everyone, the subject property is outlined in yellow there, the square property there on Monroe Highway. Again, just kind of location photos. The left is looking south along Monroe Highway. The right is looking north along Monroe Highway. Again, the Planning Commission considered this at its June meeting, found it consistent with the transitional land use classification, and ultimately gave a unanimous recommendation of approval. Staff also recommend approval of the rezoning. And I'll make myself available for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Burhans?
No, but I would like to point out in those views going north and south, I didn't see any trash or litter there. That looks very impressive.
That's my district, Alan. District, yeah.
Seriously, look at that.
That's a good observation, actually.
All right, we have a public hearing.
Nobody signed
No
up,
one
Mr.
signed
Chairman.
up, so we'll move past our public hearing. I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
Moved.
I have
Second.
a motion from Mr. Blackman, a second from Ms. McGriff. Any discussion? Hearing none, I think we're ready to vote on first reading of orders 2021-1748. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. First reading. Let's move down to public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2021-1749 regarding rezoning property located near the intersection of Pageland Highway and Rocky River Road from RR to RUB. The applicant is WTC of Lancaster, LLC. Mr. Burhans.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. This is a request to rezone a 1.8 acre portion of a larger parcel from the rural residential zoning district to the rural business district. It's located at the intersection of Pageland Highway and Rocky River Road. It's ultimately surrounded by rural residential and rural business district zone properties. The underlying intent is to help facilitate a land transfer that'll create a kind of what you might consider a cleaner parcel for development of a future retail establishment. So again, the parcel in yellow is the larger tract where this 1.8 acres will be kind of extracted from to support the retail development. The parcel at the corner of the two roads is actually zoned rural business district, and when I go to the next slide, it'll make more sense in terms of this land transfer that I outlined. So the parcel, the survey exhibit on the left represents the area being proposed for rezoning. That's the 1.8 acres, and it's outlined in blue color. If the rezoning is successful, the two adjacent owners will undertake a land swap and kind of reconfigure some of the boundaries to make sure there's an even kind of transfer of land. But you'll in essence create that revised parcel in blue on the right-hand side. Kind of looks like maybe the state of Nevada, possibly. And then they'll ultimately give up some acreage to the adjacent site to kind of help make up for this trade, if you will. That's how we understand it. And so ultimately, the image on the right is if the rezoning is approved and the reconfiguration goes through, these are what the two parcels will generally look like.
Track C on the corner.
Oh, sorry, skipped ahead. I have a new remote, so I'm still learning to drive.
There you go.
Okay, so track C is actually the site. Yes, that is the corner parcel. If you can kind of look at it, it's just beyond the yellow boundary at the intersection.
So it would be, I believe there's a house right here, and that would be C.
That's correct. As I understand, there's might be two structures there. One, I I think they've sold cars from in the past, and another might be kind of like a fruit and vegetable type stand, farmer's market type activities. I don't think there's anything there now, but there have been some past uses on that adjacent property. And you're right, there is a house, an older home that is still occupied. I think it's still as a rental property.
All right, any more questions for Mr. Burhan?
Yeah, is this land swap, is that going to take place before the third reading, or how is that going to work, Rux?
No, so we will have as you can tell, the surveying work's already been done, so we'll have a proposed plat creating this 1.8 acre rezoning area. So we have a nice clean boundary to apply the district to. But the actual swap and reconfiguration, once properties have consistent zoning, that can happen after the fact. And that'll just be a simple staff administration process.
And the preservation for the battlefield group have they weighed in on this, or?
Receive no comments from them.
All right, we do have a public hearing.
Nobody signed up. for the
Unless
public
no
hearing,
one
Mr. Chairman.
signed up. So I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. McGriff. Second from Mr. Honeycutt. Discussion. I think we're ready to vote on first reading of ordinance 2021-1749. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval, 6-0. First reading, let's move down to 8N, first reading of ordinance 2021-1757 regarding approval of a sewer easement grant to Lancaster County Water and Sewer. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Carnes.
Second.
Second from Ms. McGriff. Mr. Willis or Mr. DeBose?
Mr. Chairman, I'll let John cover the legal part of it. I just would note for council that I did talk to Chief Greg Nicholson, and Pleasant Valley Fire has no problem with this.
Members of council, this is a proposed easement grant from Lancaster County to Lancaster County Water and Sewer District. The sewer district is in need of a sewer easement to serve a portion of the Covington residential development. This grant would be 0.02 acres, approximately, I believe, 750 square feet of the subject property. Administrators addressed what was one of the primary practical concerns of the county in considering this, which is whether it would impact Pleasant Valley's use of the property. They have not objected to it. Happy to answer any other questions. The easement instrument itself is a fairly standard form easement. I saw nothing objectionable in it.
I don't understand from looking at the diagram, and just a quick, how does that one little corner help them with their sewer easement?
I believe they are, that sanitary sewer easement, if you look at the Exhibit A, goes out of lots 3 and 4. I see your point, though, in that it's not 100% touching the boundary of that property. I don't know if they need it for perhaps construction purposes. I don't know.
We'll find out.
Certainly inquire of Lancaster Water and Sewer District, though.
I'm presuming it would be a manhole gravity collection pump station back, but I'll check with Brad Busey and find out.
Never mind. I was just curious because I couldn't quite figure it out, but if everybody's happy, there's no point in belaboring. Thank you, though.
All right, any more discussion? We have a motion for approval of first reading of ordinance 2021-1757. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Let's move down to 9A, our discussion and action items. Let's go to A, approval of appointments in various boards and commissions. Do I have any kind of motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, second.
Got a motion to approve all these nominees for Mr. Carnes, a second to
Yeah.
Ms. McGriff. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. We thank these citizens for agreeing to serve and make our county a better place to live. We got information regarding acceptance of a sewer easement. Mr. Willis or Mr. DeBose?
Mr. Chairman, members of council, this relates to a sewer easement that the school district is granting us for the Harrisburg soccer fields. The only real condition I would note that the school district put on us, they asked us to perform an appraisal, so they would have that for their records of the value of the easement. We are in the process of doing that. Since this is an easement, obviously would defer to John on the legal part, but would asking for a motion just simply to formalize the acceptance of the easement.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion from Mr. Carnes to approve the easement. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second from Mr. Honeycutt. Any discussion? Have a motion on the floor to approve the easement. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Aviation overlay retreat at Lancaster. Mr. Willis.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, this is another one of those Zone F aviation overlays. Since we don't have an airport commission until we can get that text amendment in the UDO, have to bring it to council, but would request a motion to approve the airport overlay request filed by Whitehall Development for the indicated parcels.
I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. McGriff to have a second. Second. Second from Mr. Blackman. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval of our aviation overlay update on a recreation bond. Mr. Willis, Ms. Belk.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, as always with anything financial, I'll defer to Kim and Veronica on technical details. Wanted to bring you up to date on where we stood on the recreation bond. As indicated, the Lindsay Pettis Greenway, Bar Street Community Center, and the bond issuance and legal has been completed. We do have the following projects underway: Harrisburg Road Soccer Complex, the Heath Springs Soccer Complex, Indian Land Rec Center expansion renovation. See Kelvin's over there. Hal is here if you have any technical questions on the individual projects. Basically, at this point, need to let council know that with contingency, we are at the limits of where we are. There are some things that Parks and Recreation staff would like to do, some additional items. If contingency is available, I don't mind taking a look at those, but given what we're looking at with construction cost, I'm very leery of doing that, because this is a recreation bond approved by the voters. I've got 19 million, that's it. Unless, council did approve a little extra money for the Bar Street Community Center, but that's what we're working with right now. Again, Kim, I don't know if you have any additional comments, and then Kelvin and Hal are here if you have any technical questions on the projects that are underway.
The only comment I wanted to make is in the agenda item summary. There's a list there under the funding and liability factors section that talks about some of the stuff that if we can go back and put it in, this is what we'd like. The playground equipment and installation cost for the Indian Land Soccer Complex was estimated at $120,000 in that list. After talking to Hal and Catherine, you could cut about $50,000 off of that number, so it'd be about $70,000. I just want to make sure that y'all had the corrected number.
The only other thing I'd like to commend Hal and Kelvin. They are continuing to work, and believe we might have a sewer value engineering cost savings at the Heath Springs soccer field.
Yes, we've done the value engineering, and we've saved an additional $40,000.
Kelvin,
get to the
microphone.
An additional $40,000 on the Heath Springs project. So overall on that project, we value engineered $250,000. to try to save some funds on this project.
And we certainly intend to keep council updated as work progresses. And if things look positive, we'd be coming back to you for authorization to go ahead and maybe add some of those items back. But right now, till we see exactly how things are gonna progress over the next several months, just wanted to keep as much as we could in contingency, just in case. Because everybody knows what construction, costs are doing.
And if anybody wants a picnic shelter named after you, I think it's about, what, 30,000? We'll be glad to name it after Mr. Black.
The Allen Blackman Picnic Shelter?
Mr. Bose will not let you do that. I'm still alive. If I was dead, he might would let y'all do that, but I'm still alive. But seriously, what's the savings for the sewer in Heat Springs?
It's 40,000. 40.
Why? What's the detail behind it?
Well, currently, we were preparing for the future EMS station, so we had to dig the sewer a lot deeper than is actually necessary for the soccer field project. So basically, we adjusted the design to raise the sewer up a little higher, so we wanted to dig as deep. And just in the future, when that project does go, they may have to do a small lift station, but
You can put a pump in it.
Yeah, just a small
Cheap.
pump for
Pump's cheap.
two people, it's
Yeah.
far cheaper.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Alexander.
Thank you, Council.
Any
Thank
more
you for
information?
saving Alan some money.
Did you have a comment, Hal? I saw him raise his hand.
No, I was just saying, yeah, that's what it was. The pump station would take care of EMS, and I believe Clay would probably agree with that. We're not gonna have a huge amount of people in that EMS station all the time, so a small pump would work there and save us $40,000. So, but the projects are going good. If you've been by Harrisburg and seen that, stuff's going up pretty quick down there. Heat Springs, they started clearing that property and getting ready for that. We still haven't had our construction meeting on the Indian Land Rec Center project, but that's coming up shortly. So hopefully we can drop some savings there. That's the one we're concerned about the most. And I hope we're able to put a playground back in at Indian Land and get those two shelters, because if we don't, it's going to kind of look kind of empty in those spots where those were planned. So hopefully we can be able to do that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hyde. All right, glad to see those projects moving forward. Let's move down to 9E, discussion of proposal to address homelessness due to the pending evictions. Mr. Willis.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, I would defer to Councilwoman McGriff for details on this. She has been working with the Lancaster area with Coalition for the Homeless.
Lancaster Coalition for Homeless.
So I, would defer to them. I believe they have some representatives here tonight to discuss that. The one thing I would point out, that council had asked for some background information, did have an email from Van Richardson. Katisha is off. Today was Katisha's birthday. I called to wish her a happy birthday, and she's off. But I did check with Van. We currently have approximately 50 eviction cases that are basically frozen in time at the magistrate's court. If wherever they were in the process when the initial moratorium hit, that's where they'll be August the 1st. If they were 2 days from completion and eviction, August the 1st, they'll be 2 days from eviction. If they were 20 days, it'll be 20. They just basically pick back up as if they were suspended in time. Van said he's been hearing anecdotally there's a number of cases that will be coming, but until they're filed, he just doesn't know, and didn't want to hazard a guess on that. And do have a detailed budget that was provided by the Latch Group. And for additional comments, I would defer to Councilwoman McGriff.
Mr. Chair, first of all, I want Ms. Becca Clausen to come forward, her and Sharon Novinger. I'm going to leave my comments after they present their proposal, because I don't want to duplicate what they're going to say.
Wait on their
presentation to get up. I'm Becca Clausen, and this is Sharon Novinger. We are both EDs in the area, but we are not here as EDs of organizations. We are here as representatives of the steering team that is steering this project proposal for the Lancaster Area Coalition for the Homeless. We are a part of many EDs and other representatives from around the city and the county who have been sitting on this organization, this coalition, since 2015. It's been in existence to try to see if we can do something to help the homeless situation that has existed for many years in Lancaster County. Very hard to see the homeless. They're often not visible to the naked eye, but there are encampments and they're growing. And so what we are here to do is tell you about the situation that is about to happen. It's almost like a perfect storm that's about to happen in just a few days on July 31st. And it's because of the pandemic, obviously. And I think that you will see that throughout the country there has been lots of situations that have come about because of the pandemic, things that we couldn't possibly predict. We didn't know exactly how to handle it on the back end. And so this is one of those. If you go to the next slide, thank you. Our project title is the Temporary Homeless Shelter and Housing Relocation Project. Thank you for that information, Mr. Willis, because I have reached out to the head magistrate. We've had long conversations with her. We've talked to many landlords. We've spoken with many of the apartment complexes. We've talked to all the landlords, and we've talked, of course, many tenants and residents of Lancaster County. And the situation is that we're in the precipice of a post-pandemic eviction crisis, and it does not just exist in Lancaster County. It is all over the country. Not unlike many other communities, more than half of all renter households lost their employment income between March of 2020 and March of 2021 due to many, many different things. There's not a one-size-fits-all. It's completely out of the box. And then that fallout has been delayed by the eviction moratorium, which is now set. There is not going to be another extension, and so it's set to come about in just a few days. The residents are feeling the pressure. The landlords are feeling the pressure. We at our organizations completely understand both standpoints. Landlords have been without money and without cash flow for over a year. Residents, however, have been without their own cash flow. So now we're in this perfect storm of exactly what do we do because people are going to be evicted. There is a program in South Carolina called South Carolina SC Stay Plus, but it has they're taking applications, and those applications are being processed as quickly as possible. But my understanding, there's between 6,000 and 8,000 applications that will probably not come to fruition in time. There will be some people that will still be evicted, and some don't even qualify for that money. We appreciate the Lancaster News. They heard our rally cry, and for the last 3 weekends have made it the top story above the fold on the front page that we are in that situation. Not only are there those people waiting in wherever the point in time is at for being evicted, Hope every single day has folks that are coming that their landlords have not started the eviction process, but it will happen. And we're trying our best, but they're coming to us with $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 bills that we can't possibly pay. And that's not just us. There are other organizations in town that are seeing that. And go to the next slide if you don't mind. There's another two of the top of the fold stories that the Lancaster News has put out, and I hope that if you haven't read them, you'll go back and read all three. They've interviewed real people, and they've given you real stories. It is absolutely here. So what we are bringing to you is the fact that there's an opportunity that you and I can work together, because what we believe in the Lancaster Area Coalition for the Homeless is it's not just an issue that is here for the nonprofits and the other organizations in town to solve. We believe it is a whole community issue that we need to solve together.
Thank you, Becca. And I'm Sharon Novinger. I know many of y'all already. I'm a member of Latch, as Becca said, and two other key members that were not able to be here tonight. Leland Summers, he's the outreach coordinator from Austin Wilkes Society, and Amber Jackson, the United Way executive director. And just a little quick acronym, when Becca was saying ED a couple times, that's of course executive director. So I know we talk in acronyms a lot. But as Becca was talking about our opportunity, there's a great opportunity here with the $19 million that's been allocated to Lancaster County through the American Rescue Act of 2021. To simply put, put it simply, the fabric of our community nonprofits is being stretched to the point of no return with all these requests. You know, of course, there's the 50 impending evictions at the magistrate's office, and then there's, what, the 38, I think, you have right now, or you know about at Hope. Those are people that have reached out already. And if you times just the average household, you know, that's an impact of probably well over 100 people that will be without housing. So with this American Rescue Act funding, we were trying to brainstorm, okay, what can we do here with the nonprofits? And how do we actually qualify, or how do we think we're eligible to receive these funds, of which the United Way would be the fiscal agent? The fiscal recovery funds must be used in, as you know, as one of the 4 eligible use categories. And number 1 is to respond to the public health emergency or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits, or to aid to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. And I know it was stated in citizens' comments about it being an either or neither nor for funding, but that's not what we're asking for consideration. We want it to be an and with that. And so, like I said, we're being stretched to the point of, you know, to a breaking point. And I know many of you guys have served on local nonprofit boards, so you know what we're talking about here. And counties have a broad flexibility to, as long as we can demonstrate, to use these funds, as long as we can demonstrate that these activities support public health response and that recipients of the recovery funds have experienced economic harm from the pandemic, and of which we can prove. Now, the solution, thanks, Chelsea. The solution is our area Coalition for the Homeless program. Of course, like we stated, is a program of United Way, is proposing a temporary shelter and housing relocation project that will help solve this unique issue presented by the recent public health crisis. Currently, Latch has been using, well, I guess for the last several years, well, since 2015, we've been using the Carriage Inn to offer temporary short-term housing for homeless individuals and families. And it's been a maximum of 3-night stay, during which time often, you know, we'll find space at a shelter. But currently there are, we have no homeless shelter. There's no area shelters in surrounding counties accepting people from other counties as well. And so anyway, so getting back, there's several organizations that often put people, in the middle of the night, or where, especially on weekends, they house people in the Carriage Inn on a volunteer basis, and we provide case management to stop, as much as possible during that short period of time to help the homeless individuals and families and see what additional resources can be found. Now, this crisis is calling for a much more expansive plan, and that's where we need assistance big time, and to relocate dozens of individuals on the verge of eviction. And like I said, the Lancaster County, United Way of Lancaster County would be the fiscal agent, and we're proposing the rental of 20 rooms for a 3-month period beginning as soon as possible, because like we stated earlier, the SC Stay Plus program, that's in the future. That's more like September funding or October funding or something. We need something, of course, before that. And the owner of the Carriage Inn has met with Latch representative and agreed to provide these rooms at a reduced cost for this project. And the proposal, and I know you guys have received this, includes rooms for 3 months, a site manager, and a case manager, as well as funds for relocation and security and any legal services. And how it would happen, how a participant would be part of the program, they would submit an application, and if accepted, report to the site manager for room assignment, and then you can see how the plan unfolds there. And so the budget includes proposal for some funding for meals, even though so some limited meals. Though we have plans, as we have in the past, to reach out to community, nonprofits, and local businesses for help with food and meal cards. And Christian Services has already committed to weekly homeless food boxes for the participants. As well as there's a section for applying for jobs and interviewing skills and required training and such through Austin Wilkes and SE Works. They're crucial in this project. And any participant struggling with mental health and addiction issues will be referred to appropriate agencies and organizations and/or support groups. And when not working toward the goals or employment, participants will be required to do community service projects as coordinated by the site manager. And an important part of this project, as you can see in the detailed budget coming up, is a line item for relocation. You know, many homeless families and individuals lack the key component for rehousing, which of course is utility and rental deposits. And, you know, there's not any agencies in town, it's very limited, let me clarify, very limited funds of agencies. In fact, United Way, I believe, is the only one that offers deposit funds for individuals. And I think they're almost out of that. And so anyway, this would help with provide assistance for those rental and utility deposits as well as a first month's rent. And then I'm just, for the sake of time, I'm sort of paraphrasing too, and also since you guys have this proposal, but it's a multi-agency plan, you know, to come together. For example, Hope, you know, using Austin Wilkes and SE Works, as well as Hope and Lancaster to help clients with sustainability after the rehousing is accomplished. They have a wonderful, very successful program called Bounce Back, in which, you know, there's weekly or bi-weekly mentoring related to budgeting, goal setting, resources, and referrals. And Bounce Back clients receive food at each appointment, as well as funding for utility bills and transportation if needed. And so the case manager will work closely with the clients and Hope social workers to follow up on referrals.
Let's go to the budget.
Yes, and then that's next. Okay.
So the budget is, you see this before you. It involves, and I put just some of the sort of bullet points there on the side. It involves a case manager, direct client support, program funding, hotel rentals, security, site manager.
Let me ask you about the hotel rentals to start
Sure.
with. You're going to sign a 3-month contract and you're going to have a block of rooms. You're going to have, whether there's one person there or 20 people, you're going to pay for 20 rooms a night.
That's correct. However, we expect to be filled up and with a waiting list. I mean, I just can't imagine that we're not going to fill those up. Also, one of those 20 rooms is actually going to be the site manager's office, because we have to have a place on site for the site manager. We can certainly work it out with Mr. Patel that if we don't use a particular room, we can talk to him about that, but we really needed to commit to that. We haven't signed a contract with him. We've only had a conversation. He's come down on his per night rate. He usually charges us $55 a night. He's charging us $42 a night for these rooms.
Becca, can you speak to the security?
Sure. This is going to be 24-hour-a-day security. We'll be looking at off-duty police and sheriff's deputies. We also have on our steering team is Sergeant Bill Murphy, who has taken that information back to the sheriff's office, and also we're communicating that with the city police. We will also be looking into a private security if we can't get enough off-duty folks. But one of the big pieces of all of that is that we'll have 24-hour security.
You know how many times the city police was called to that motel 2020?
I'm sure a lot.
148 times. EMS was called to that facility 28 times.
But remember, those
massive,
were not homeless people, those were citizens.
Well,
in town or out of town.
The concern, one concern I have, need to get back to the SC state. I don't know a lot about the program, but there's $272 million that is committed to paying rent. They have started writing checks. It's slow, but the reason it's slow is because government's slow, and there's an 8-page application plus all this documentation.
Right.
From federal government.
Yes, sir.
But to the ones that don't qualify, if they don't qualify for that, you know, this is COVID related. A lot of these evictions are not COVID related. And I'm concerned when this is over with, they'll come in and the United Way won't be responsible for paying the money back, but it's a possibility the county will.
Let me speak to that 1 minute. And I think the process here has been misunderstood. It's not about council immediately approving this. It's about council giving approval for Steve to take it to the Treasurer's Department and ask for approval. We will not allocate any money that's not approved through the Treasurer's Department. So let me read my comments here because I didn't really want to miss anything because I thought people would misunderstand the process. And maybe some questions will be answered. And first of all, Beck, I want to apologize to you for not giving you the right procedures to get it on the agenda. And then that meant I had to call some council members and able to get it on the agenda for tonight. And the reason why we need it on the agenda is so we can make a decision about whether we're going to send this to Washington to the Treasury Department. Not that we're going to approve it. I have a few comments to make concerning the presentation tonight by Becca Clausen. First, I would like to apologize. As I said, it was my fault, not Steve Willis's, for not having it on the agenda. The federal government has allocated over $19 million to Lancaster County by the Treasury Department through the American Rescue Act 2021. These funds are to be used as regulated by the guidelines set forth by the Treasury Department. A few weeks ago, council voted to give essential workers a bonus. I was and still is in support of our workers. At that meeting, I emphasized the importance of getting approval of projects before the money is allocated. I still feel that way. Tonight, on the agenda, as you heard Ms. Clausen, a proposed project to help the homeless population here in Lancaster County. This is the second of 2 requests to use these funds. Unlike what we did with the bonuses, I have asked that we get approval from council tonight to contact the Treasurer's Department to see if this request is in order and qualify for the funding. The request from Latch, in my opinion, is a clear project that council needs to support. I was elected to serve and make the community a better place for the citizens that elected me. To know that in the weeks to come, there will be dozens of families with children displaced with no shelter. These funds are not meant to spend as we choose. It is to be used to better the lives of low and moderate income populations. Let's not kick this can down the road and get to the end of the funding cycle and realize that we have not spent the money in a timely manner. Let's review the projects as they come to us and determine if they are eligible to move forward to the Treasurer's Department. We all must remember, we are one disaster away, another pandemic away, one illness away, one paycheck away, and another downturn in the economy away from being homeless. All the census tracts that qualify for this rescue money is in my district. Track 105, track 107, 108. Y'all don't see what I see. I see it, they call me. Only 1.7% of this funding that they're requesting is coming from the 19 million. And nonprofits are doing all they can, and nonprofits are the one that is responsible for these citizens, and it should not be that way. We are not asking for county funding. We're not asking for state money. We're asking for funds that's been allocated to the federal government for this cause, homelessness. And that's all I got to say right now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Griff.
Mr. Harper, did you want me to respond to what you said, or?
I don't, I mean,
I can talk about the SC State
just,
Plus a little bit more.
I'm just concerned that a lot of these evictions are back up. They're way back, and a lot of them are not related to COVID, in my opinion. I don't know, and they are going to all happen at one time. I mean, that's a fact. Which, you know, there's 50 plus, and then you got landlords that are coming in, and it's going to hit in two to 3 weeks.
It's going to hit, and it's the council's
It's going to be at one time.
responsibility to do something.
I don't understand, if we're going to go ask the federal government, is this appropriate, and can we spend it? By the time we get the answer back, this wave that we're talking about will have already passed.
Well, it's already qualifies for the money. On the safe side, if council say move forward, let's check and see whether this money is appropriate. Steve can make phone calls to Washington, to the federal government, say this is a project. Is this something that we can support through the $19 million? I don't think that's gonna take no weeks or months.
I'll be honest, I don't know. I think it'd be fairly close. Under the interim rule, provided they're serving residents in the qualified census tracts, and HUD identifies those have already been identified, it would qualify under the interim rule. We're not in a final rule yet.
So the only applicants from those 3 census tracts
Under the qualified census tract for the homelessness.
could participate in this.
And that's pretty much all of the city, all of the area that I represent.
It's a lot of the promised neighborhood
Yeah,
area.
Brooklyn Avenue, Midway.
We had planned to do,
West Avenue,
Excuse me.
Movie Farm, some of them in your district, Larry.
we intend to do a due diligence, and the applications will be, follow that rule. The Carriage Inn falls in that census tract, as do most of the people that come to us for our help. We were aware that that was part of the rule, that it had to be part of those census tracts, and we are also going to make sure that they follow the rule related to, it's a pandemic related. We're going to have homeless people that don't fall in that category, in which case we'll have to see them in a different situation. But this is where we're trying to, we can't possibly fix the entire eviction process. There's going to be people in camps, where they are now, but we're just trying to fix part of it. And we were hoping for some of this money to be able to do it, and the way we read it, it falls in that category, and we just came to you for a very fraction of that money, which leaves you still $18,600,000 some odd to spend in the ways that you'd like. We're asking for a little over $300,000.
Mr. Chairman, also, we would have to have a sub-recipient agreement before we could do anything working with an outside entity, and County Attorney DeBose would be preparing that document.
We would also like to see that County Council believes that this project and this process and this problem is a county-wide problem and not just falling on the backs of nonprofits and the people that live in the city.
But it's a countywide problem, but you're only going to be dealing with the city. The people in my district will not benefit from this program at all. Now, that's not to say I don't think this is worth the project, so please don't anyway. But another question is, like, the case manager, $34,000 for 3 months, you're going to pay somebody
No, in the process, we said that the case manager was a year-long process and that everything else was for 3 months. The idea of the case manager working for the full year is that we're hoping that with sustainability funds, which we asked for also, that person will follow and help us with our program at Hope, because what we're hoping is the folks that were, affected by this pandemic, that we can help them move all the way through to sustainability. So we're trying to fix the long-term issue with these short-term funds.
If someone's being evicted for non-payment, how are they going to find another landlord that's going to rent to
Oh,
them?
that's a really good question. And so what we are doing is working we have really good relationships through Latch as well as through Hope with landlords. We've got a good number of landlords that we are working with and that have already, through our programs, rehoused some folks that have been evicted. So it's all about relationships and case management and working with people. There are a lot of landlords that will not take them. Although I'd like to give a little heads up to landlords, because with all these people being evicted, the folks that are going to apply are going to be, they're just trading people around. I don't know where they think these other people are going to be to take their homes. If they don't take evicted people, we're just going to have a bunch of homeless people and a bunch of rentals with nobody in them. So some of these landlords are beginning. It's like, oh, I think I'm going to have to lessen my rules because otherwise there's nobody to take the homes.
I guess my question is to John, a legal question. How do we follow through to get approval for these funds to make sure if we allocate any, that it's approved through the Treasurer's Department?
So I think whether the funds are approved through the Treasury is, I guess, somewhat of a moving target. There's not final guidance. There are all these interim guidance documents and FAQs. That said, as to this particular item, you'd have your subrecipient agreement to make sure that the recipient of the funds was spending them in the manner provided for and required by the Treasury. But basically, this proposal would need, again, a subrecipient agreement approved, and you've referenced it earlier, some vetting and confirmation that the funds would be eligible. I will note, just for the record, because this item was added to the agenda after publication, no final action could be taken tonight. Final action could only be taken at a future meeting where public comment has been received or will be received on the item. But council certainly could direct administration to take certain steps. Again, that would not be final action approving expenditure of funds, but any additional background information that folks sought, or as referenced earlier, some opinion or vetting from Treasury could come out of this. I mean, council could make a motion if that was their will to direct those activities.
Can you write that motion or state it so I could make it?
Yeah, I think the form of the motion, again, because it would not be final action, and I understand you have a question and a concern about making sure that these funds do qualify, would just be a motion to direct the administrator to contact Treasury, make sure that this would be a qualifying program, and then present a subrecipient agreement and the findings at some future meeting. Again, that would require the positive vote of council, but I think that's the form of the motion, to direct the administrator to make sure it's qualifying expenditure, and then having council, myself, work on a subrecipient agreement.
I'll make that motion as stated by John.
All right, we have a motion from Ms. McGriff.
Second.
A second from Mr. Honeycutt. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Carnes.
I feel what is being said here, but I think if we're going to do this action, we need to go through what we're talking about going through, was to go to the feds. I was the only one that said I didn't approve of the rate or the bonuses for employees just because we didn't have the final guidance from the federal government. And we need to know what that final guidance is as it's related to this. So,
And I agree, Brian, 100%.
I don't necessarily agree with all of this program.
No, I'm talking about with what he said about getting approval.
But I do agree with that it needs to be sent, because, I question some of this stuff about renting all the rooms where you might be paying for 3 people there and 20 rooms. But that discussion could be had later if it gets that far. But I have no issue with seeking guidance. So I think we got a motion on the floor. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I have no problem with going forward with seeking guidance, but I do want to know more about the program. I mean, there's $7,700 for legal costs. Is this really a one-year program or a 3-month program? I think if you're going to ask the question of the federal government, they're going to want a lot of detail. I could be wrong, but I know in grant writing, you've got to really, really detail out your program if you expect to get funding. And this doesn't quite cut it to me to cover all the details of what's going to happen. For an example, again, someone gets evicted a week from Monday, and then they come and they say, well, I need a place to stay. They stay for 3 days. How's that going to really help them for the long term?
No.
That was how we do it now. That's not how we're going to do it in this program.
This to me told me they're going to get 3 days.
I'm sorry.
Out of a 30-day.
I'm sorry. She read it and said that I said it wrong, and I apologize. I was stating what we do now in that first paragraph. Then I said what we need is a more expansive program, so they can stay up to 3 months if it takes that with the case manager to get to the new place. So I'm happy to write out something that's more detailed and send it to Steve if that would be helpful. Or if you want to know now, I can do that.
No. I think I don't know what the council.
And
I move it forward for approval, but before I approve it after that, I would really want to know a lot more about how this is going to work. I'm a landlord. I have nobody that's delinquent with me. They all had jobs. Some lost jobs, changed jobs during the pandemic. And they all paid their rent. Some were late, things like that. But they've been whole, I've been whole. And I don't understand why some of these people being evicted can't get jobs when there are jobs out there to be had. Because if someone came to me and they hadn't paid 6 months and look, I just finally got a job at Bojangles and I can start paying you, I wouldn't kick them out. And I don't think most landlords would kick them out.
Alan, you're one of a few landlords, and believe me, they will kick them out.
I can't tell you how many folks we've had.
I'm sorry. Yes, they will.
All right,
I live it every day.
all right, as we all, I think, will have many questions if this moves forward, but we do have a motion from Ms. McGriff to let Mr. Willis.
Can I say one more
Yes,
comment?
ma'am.
What we've got to do as council, we've got to understand that folks will be bringing projects to us. We don't need to allow them to pile up. We need to take them as they come, decide whether we can vet these through the federal government or what. Because projects are going to come to us for this $19 million. And remember, it's not left up to us how we going to spend this money. It's not for us to decide, but it's to the federal government to decide with the guidelines they put in place.
Well, I think council has the authority to spend this money, and there's a
According to
4-year
the guidelines, Steve.
The guidelines will change. There's already been over 1,100.
Well, whatever they
requests for
finalize, that's what we got to go back.
All right, let's entertain Ms. McGriff's motion. Have a motion to let Mr. Willis or Mr. DeBose or whoever send this into the federal government. And as soon as he gets a response, it will go on the agenda in the next meeting. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Have unanimous approval. All right, let me pull up my agenda. Thank y'all. Anything on the tabled, deferred, or held items? Item 13, do I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss
Second.
economic development issues, legal issues? Had a motion from, go ahead.
Before we have that, would note that we would have Jeff Cato joining us for one of the executive session items.
Mr. Cato. We had a motion from who?
From me.
Second. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval.
Are we going to meet out here?
We are now in executive session. We're going to back.